Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. My name is Sean,
I'm Missy.
and joining us again to talk about some gnarly ass body horror that is just so much fun, Ivy Tholen. Hello, Ivy.
Hello,
Hi,
thank you
Ivy.
for having me.
So, I've previously introduced you as our slasher expert,
Mhm.
and although this is not a slasher movie, we're going to talk about Sasha Rainbow's Grafted, which is hit Shudder last week. How do you feel about body horror? Because I definitely feel like there's elements of the kills in your slasher novels that would almost transcend at times into body horror. I'm thinking of my
Yeah,
favorite kill, which I'm
yeah.
not going to give away still. I always reference this, but it has to do with the dunk
Um,
tank.
I don't think of myself. Here's the thing, you are correct. I don't always think of myself as a body horror fan because I don't grossness doesn't appeal to me. But then I do things like write things that do, you know, get almost there. And I do
Hmm.
like movies like this. And I loved The Substance because this is a comparison that's going to come up over and over and over again because you can't not compare the two at this point in
Right.
time. Um, like I'm starting to enjoy movies that are just body horror more. I've always enjoyed, cheesy slashers have been body horror adjacent forever. Whenever you're doing, I mean, the first one that's coming to mind is a recent one, Yoga Girl in a Violent Night.
I was just
Like
there.
that's that's
I was
body
just
horror.
there.
But thanks to The Substance, I'm sort of going down a path where I'm looking more into movies that are just body horror. And this is body horror. Oh my God.
You know, this movie's it's not as huge as The Substance. It's not as cinematic, but
Mm-mm.
it is definitely like the little sister of the Substance. And I believe it was actually made concurrently or like, so I think there's going to be a lot of people are like, it's wearing its influence on its sleeve, and maybe there was some post stuff or whatever, but I think this is all I think it's just like a zeitgeist thing right now.
Hmm.
And it's I'm just happy to behold it. Missy, you watched this before first, I believe, before either of us.
I think Ivy watched it first.
I watched it first and I told her to watch it.
I may have mentioned it
Yeah.
initially because I'd
Yeah.
been waiting for it. I don't remember
Same.
what put it on my radar, but I had been waiting for it to come out. Um, but I think Ivy was the one who watched it first, and I watched it like the next night, and then you watched it the night after that.
Okay, okay.
I don't mind body horror. I'm the werewolf girl. I've been watching shapeshifter movies since I was a kid, so it doesn't bother me the way it does a lot of people.
Hmm.
Which I hadn't thought about until I was exuberantly explaining a werewolf transformation to a friend who doesn't watch horror movies, who was kind of horrified. And it's like, I don't like body horror. And I had never thought of werewolves as that until, until it was put in a different perspective. But it's probably why the body horror it doesn't phase me unless it has to do with teeth. And then I'm hiding under the blanket like a 5-year old. I hate anything to do with fucking teeth.
The werewolf thing is interesting because I think there's like multiple like there's multiple kinds of werewolf movies, but the ones that always resonate with me, well, okay, Dog Soldiers is definitely not a body horror movie, right? And that's my
No.
favorite werewolf movie. But werewolf movies that like I picture like having a deep impact on me when I was younger, just like Company of Wolves, just seeing the bit that Roger Ebert and Siskel did where like they would show like a clip or whatever, and it's that image of the guy opening his mouth and the snout
Mm-hmm.
coming out. That made such a fucking impact on me,
Yep.
and that is body horror.
Yeah, because
100% right.
they peel the skin off, like they
Yes.
peel the human off and come out a wolf. Or even like American Werewolf in London has a very body horror transformation scene. It's very
Very.
crackly and stretchy and like
Ginger
it's
It,
Snap. Ginger snaps. Her body starts freaking out on her for quite a bit before she even.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, yes, but I feel like they play the body horror a little bit closer to the chest, like because even there's that like scene where she walks into school and she's like partially transformed, but they play it off where it's like she's all sexy and stuff and turning heads, so it's a little bit less visceral. Um, where like American Werewolf in London, which full disclosure, I don't really like that movie, but that transformation is fucking outstanding. Like it's just unbelievable. So Ivy, talk about how did Sasha Rainbow? Were you familiar with Sasha Rainbow before this movie?
Not at all. I hadn't even Missy told me about the movie. I hadn't even heard about the movie. I was not on my radar at all. So no, I haven't seen anything else. I'm looking at IMDb.
Because I noticed the
Oh, yeah.
trailer I watched after I watched the movie was like from the mind of Sasha Rainbow. So I'm like,
Oh,
unless this is a thing where they're like trying to retroactively do that, you're like, I mean, and they have a couple shorts, but I didn't see anything that like I'd heard of. Although I was like, I swear I've heard of this name before, but apparently I'd been waiting for the movie also because I had seen the trailer a couple months ago and kind of forgot about it. Um,
Nothing else.
so you watched it probably pretty much right when it dropped. What was your initial reaction to watching Grafted?
I had heard it described as Substance Meets Mean Girls, and I went, "Yep, that's it right there."
yeah, it is.
And then I also thought there's something about it, and I don't know what it is. There's something about it. It gives the feel of the kind of movie that an American company would do a remake of and tweak it a little bit,
Ooh.
set it in the United States. Like I could see them taking a Latina girl and throwing her in South Dakota, that kind of situation. But it's so, I mean, I think that, this, maybe not everybody's going to see it, but with the Substance being super hot right now, you could put this in theaters, limited run in the US, and it would do fine, I think. Like, I really do. I don't think it would be a huge blockbuster, but I definitely do something like
You
that.
could get people.
It
But
would get people. It would get a bigger audience than
yeah,
some of the movies that have been
yeah.
in big box theaters in the last
Mhm.
3 years.
But it's also still just a little too spicy for the average American. Like it's a little too foreign for them still. So I could see some company getting this, remaking it, Americanizing it, and trying to make it huge. And all the rest of us going, but this one existed. Why do we need to remake this? Like this just has
Right,
Right.
I don't know if that makes
right.
any sense, but it just feels like Speak No Evil just had that happen.
Hmm.
Evil didn't need an American remake. That didn't need to happen. But
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
Because
No, it didn't. It certainly didn't. It certainly didn't need 5 trailers that told you the whole fucking movie
for
either.
5 months in advance.
that's not enough on the movie. I don't want to see the remake. I was happy with this, but it just feels
Right.
But you're I could totally see what you're saying because let's put it this way. I picture like some like big studio execs gonna look at this and be like, okay, wait a minute, hold on. We got Chinese people in New Zealand.
Mhm.
Why is anybody, other than in New York or California, going to watch this fucking movie? Let's put exactly like what you said. We'll get a Puerto Rican girl and we'll put her in South Dakota and
Yeah.
boom, there you go. Oh man, the corporate mind. Um, God, I mean, I guess it would be good for the filmmaker if that happened because they would get money. But I'm thinking of like Martyrs where I've never seen the American one, but like anybody I know that saw it was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, why? Because the other
Hmm.
one was French, right? So it's like Americans can't deal with the French, just and
But
also spicy.
this isn't even subtitled though, so they don't have an excuse.
Right.
They never have an excuse, but there's
Well,
always an
right, but
excuse. The excuse is stupidity
The excuse
true.
is that the
and
broad American
laziness.
audience doesn't want anything that's not American.
Right. And this is pretty spicy. It's
Yeah.
pretty fucking spicy.
Yeah.
I was impressed by
Um,
how spicy it got because I mean when Ivy said that it's the substance with Mean Girls, I'm thinking, oh, then it's probably going to be kind of tame.
No.
And it had some really badass, gnarly shit right in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh God damn it,
Like the
dude.
initial
What?
grafting scene with the skin and the
That,
slashing and
oh,
Oh.
that
oh,
was
I love that. I
horrible.
love that opener so much.
Oh,
And tell me if you agree, if either of you agree, a really good use of CG effects.
yes.
Yes.
You know, like there's just some stuff that you're not going to be able to do. And it's not all CG, but there's just especially at the beginning because of the
Hmm.
speed at which the effect occurs
Mhm.
and that they need, oh my God, like this grafting tissue that keeps growing. Um, oh, oh man. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
good.
for CG, it was not bad. I recognized it, but it didn't stand out like bad CG usually will, where it takes
No,
you out and you go,
absolutely
"Ooh,
not.
that's yeah, this is not like that." It still looks pretty good. It still had a couple of scenes that are totally going to make people cringe, and I loved that slashing thing in the beginning. And it did. It happened so fast that they'd have to use
Hmm.
some CG to make it work, and it was still a good effect.
I mean, I guess maybe you could do like stop motion, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, this looked good. And I feel like this
Hmm.
looked better than if they had done it with stop motion, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Nothing against stop motion, but just the
It wouldn't have
particular
worked for this.
parameters. Yes, the particular parameters of the effect and the gag for this, it's like, it just, hats off. So this is directed by Sasha Rainbow. This is written by Sasha Rainbow, Lee Murray, Mia Maramara, and Wailing Au. Um, so we have the, okay, Yoena's son is Wei. I actually don't want to read the cast because at some point during the movie, I IMDb'd it, and there's the IMDb actually spoils
Yeah.
something.
Yes.
So actually, no disrespect to the other actors involved, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to keep reading. And this is a movie that basically starts in China, where it's a let's say I don't know what was she 16-year-old girl maybe, um, and her father who was a kind of a scientist that's been maligned by the scientific community for radical approaches to skin grafting because both he and his daughter have. I mean, to me,
A
they look
birthmark?
like birthmarks,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's what I
they
thought too.
treated them like they were so, you know, almost debilitating. I mean, I guess this was a psychological thing. And his experiment in trying to fix, quote unquote, both of them goes awry. And then she ends up going to school in New Zealand and living with an aunt. I think it's an aunt.
Hmm.
And yeah,
And it's the most obnoxious daughter. Um, well, actually, and her daughter's friends are even more obnoxious, or at least one of them is. And so she ends up at the university and kind of working with a professor who's pretty shady in the lab, and gross and mad things uh, unfold from there.
Continuing her father's work.
Continuing her, yeah, that's like that could almost be the log line, right?
Yeah.
Like continuing her
right.
father's work, because it sounds kind of ominous.
Yeah.
Most of the body horror is dealing with skin grafting. There's quite a bit of bloodshed.
One of my favorite things is that the longer it went on, the crazier our villain got. That doesn't
Yeah,
Hmm.
always happen. Sometimes, because she's a very, very sympathetic character.
good
And a
point.
lot of the time,
Yeah.
whenever you have a sympathetic villain at that, like Carrie, like the character of Carrie, she's sympathetic
Hmm.
all the way through. You understand why she's doing those things. So she's like, even whenever she's like looking at things, she's still like, there's no like sinister look on Carrie's face whenever she's like looking around the gym, setting everything on fire. Like her face is frozen. This one is grinning and laughing and enjoying herself as she gets a little crazier and just fully loses it. And it's wonderful to watch. They could have kept her stoic, they could have kept her sweet, but she acts insane at some point, and it's great.
There's a scene where she's got somebody on a table near the end, and she's doing this like, oh, and she's doing this dance. And I gotta say, I had never heard of the band The Inmates, but they do the song that they feature several times in this movie, I'm Watching You. And I don't know what year this was originally published. It's like 60s. They're like the Who meets Porter Wagner meets like Dr. Demento. The whole their whole record on Apple Music, Runaway, is amazing. But that song in particular is such a great expression of how just loony our character has become by that point. And you're 100%. Oh my God, she's. And I hadn't even thought of her as the villain until you said that. Because
Hmm.
also, like, most of the people that she's laying waste to, it's like,
Yeah.
good,
Right, they're
good.
awful.
And she shows remorse for. There's two things that happen to other people where, like, she definitely is like, one is completely by accident, and one is like, I have to do this, but I don't want to, but I have to. And she shows full on remorse. But she's fucking batshit crazy when she's dealing with the people that she hates, and rightfully so, she hates them.
Hmm.
She is just like Ivy said, she's losing her mind. I mean, she's
She's
just having a
vicious.
good old time dancing around.
Well, and it's cool because, like, I think the whole beauty is only skin deep kind of thing runs through the whole movie. But as she is doing this grafting thing, when she's in form where she would consider herself more beautiful because she's trying to hide her birthmark and the things she doesn't like about herself, she gets meaner and meaner. So when she thought she was ugly, she was a good person.
Is interesting.
And as she gets more beautiful as she thinks she should be, she's becoming a horrible person, having to do horrible things to maintain the beauty that she perceives.
There's so a question I want to ask both of you based on that, but it gets into spoiler territory, so I don't want to ask it. Maybe we'll ask it off camera.
Okay.
Um, oh, that's really interesting, Missy.
I hadn't thought of her as the villain. So, I mean, that's an interesting perspective too. But
She is in that
she
she's the
is,
one shedding blood, right? But you
right.
have to ask yourself,
Yeah.
like, well, is it really a bad thing that these people are being killed? Like,
Hmm.
She's kind of justified. She
Some of it's justified.
almost all of it, I would say. Almost all of it.
There's one person I felt bad for, but
Yes.
yeah.
they didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and actually, also off camera, I would like to ask both of you your opinion of the ending because I rewatched the end yesterday, and I was like, I still don't know that I'm getting like I felt I usually movies don't perplex me as much as that ending did, but I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know.
This is not good because I don't remember the ending.
Yeah, I'm.
It's a weird. It's almost like the ending in a way is like
Is it a non-ending?
maybe. I mean, I don't want to ward people off by saying that. Like, this movie is fucking worth. This is a banger. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm weirdly surprised that I can't remember the end of this movie.
I can't at the moment either.
Like I can remember up to a point, but I mean like I
Hmm.
know how it ends, but I genuinely don't remember the very, very ending. That's weird.
I think there was like a metaphor in there that I was so this movie is also like it's visually glorious, and
Hmm.
there's metaphors like for instance the aunt's house is like under construction, right? So
Yeah.
there's like they're missing like a door or a window, so there's just this like plastic, flap or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's like obviously it's a metaphor for certain things, whatnot. Um, but just visually, sometimes that can be heavy-handed, but it was just so beautiful to look at. The lighting and stuff, it's very much from this like I don't like neo new wave. Like I don't know how you want to say whatever this. Like, there's definitely a sentiment that's I've seen lately with a different approach to lighting, a different approach to music, it's and just set design. Really, just an interesting, lavish movie. Well, although like lavish, if you say lavish movie, I think of like Only Lovers Left Alive because of Hiddleston's digs, right? His
Mm-hmm.
brownstone mansion in Detroit that's layered with tapestries and all the. But this is like a different kind of lavish. I don't know. It was just so visually rich. A lot of it was the lighting, I feel like.
A lot of it was the
Um,
Lighting is
lighting.
fantastic.
Because because certain locations are like the aunt's house is always very warm and pink.
Hmm.
Anything
yeah,
shot inside it is very warm and pink. Or in the beginning when she's with her father in the lab, it's still warm, but it's more like like brownish earth tone
Yeah.
kind
yeah,
kind of colors. And then when you get to school, everything is cold and bright fluorescent lights. And so they were like setting our mood with the lighting.
definitely.
But the and the color of the stuff are going to be the two things that people compare it to the substance the most.
Yeah,
Oh, there's
for
like
sure.
the vials that she's using.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things,
But
Yes,
they were
like,
pink.
oh, the substance, but there's no way. I mean, I think it's a coincidence.
I think so. I think it's zeitgeist. But then that makes you
Well, it had
wonder.
to be because this actually came out last year, I think. It's getting
Okay,
released now, but if you look it up on IMDb, it lists as 2024.
okay,
So maybe they were made like concurrently. It released,
Well, we live
you
in a
know,
world where people are injecting their faces full of things. So obviously,
that's true.
that there's constant talk about fillers and Botox and all of that kind of thing. Of course, it's out there. So of course, people are making horror movies about it. I mean,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't, it just feels like a coincidence. I don't think that these two movies have anything to do with one another. To me, it's a very like, what happens when we keep injecting things into our faces? What if people are
yeah,
too many things into themselves? It's a very easy like line if you're thinking about, if you're being more creative about the idea of using, fillers and that kind of thing as a horror. It could be real easy to be like, just have a prosthetic where someone's lips get bigger and then that's the horror. But if you're thinking outside the box, you could go in different directions. And I think somebody was on that particular path of all the injectables and the things that we're doing to our faces nowadays. And then one went this way, one went that way, but they have a couple of things in common.
right.
Yeah. Right on. Because even though I mean, like everybody is comparing it to the substance, the stories are totally different.
Completely different.
And
Very.
the whole point of them is completely different because this goes with the beauty is skin deep route, and the substance is more accept yourself before you self destruct.
This is also what your average person thinks of as horror more than the substance is. The
Yes.
substance, the substance, the substance, up until we get to Monstro Elisa Sue, the substance could very easily it could be one of those movies that people are like, no, it's a thriller. But
Until that.
once Monstro Elisa Sue, like it's a horror movie. But
Right.
the movie's a horror movie all the way through. It does have that going on. Like that's one of the biggest differences. And this is teenage girls and the things that are happening and the things they're worried about are very, I mean, I guess they're a little older than teenagers, but not much. Um yeah. It just, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and nobody's as vicious as fucking teenage girls.
Teenage girls are the
Yeah.
scariest
I-
thing on the planet.
there's the Mean Girls thing right there. Oh
Yeah.
man.
And when people compare it to Mean Girls, it's not funny in that way. It's not like quippy light horror. Ginger Snaps is actually good at comparison. It's a very similar tone. Like
Yeah.
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 It's not funny. It's not a comedy. It's not a horror comedy. It is funny when the character starts losing her mind because the actress is great. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's not fluffy horror comedy on this one. It's a serious horror movie.
Yeah, it is. Because that was
It
my
is.
concern when you compared it to Mean Girls initially, and that's why I wasn't expecting them to like
Go all in.
go all in and have the gore pack a punch, and it does. Like they don't pull any punches here.
No, not at all.
The only comparison to Mean Girls really is just that you've
It's
got
bitchy
the
girls.
you're right, and it's very pink. This movie
It
is
is.
very pink.
It's extremely pink. I loved it. Girly horror, I think I said this before we started recording. Girly horror is my favorite kind of horror. And we're getting a lot of
Yeah.
lately.
I mean, I feel like it's this time where, and there were always great, you know, Near Dark.
No. I mean girly. I don't mean like women making horror movies. I mean stuff like Jennifer's Body. Stuff like what I write.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, got it, got it.
Where it's like I think I one time I called it like pink glitter gel horror, like that kind of stuff.
Okay,
I like
That's what I
that.
wrote.
That's
I like that.
Love that. Love it. Teeth, another example.
let me ask you though, can anyone other than can anyone other than women make girly horror? And I'm not
Gay men.
I'm open I'm open to having the definition of a woman be, you know, if you identify as a woman, fine, but like Knife and Heart is a gay man's horror movie, and it is there's nothing girly, but you know what I mean. It has very effeminate characters.
Girly is not, it's not feminist. It's girly is like, I don't know, Jennifer's Body is the one I keep coming back to because film wise, that's like the ultimate girly horror movie to me, where you have girls, being, girly friends, and they're doing each other's, doing makeup, and they're getting ready to go out to a concert together, and they're talking about boys, and they're, having fun. And then the horror hits, and you have Jennifer, you know, she's still a teenage girl the entire time that this
Right,
Hmm.
is happening. I'm completely blanking on anything, but they're still acting like teenage girls. They're being very feminine. They're being very girly. This movie's hot pink.
Hmm.
Whenever you think of like girl, like we're being real fast and loose with the definition of horror here, but something like Jawbreaker is girly horror. That was written by a man. Heathers is extremely girly, and it's horror,
Yeah.
and that was written by a man. So absolutely, but
yeah,
both gay men. I do
there you
believe.
go.
I know the man who wrote Jawbreaker, Darren Stein, is gay. I don't know, but I would not be surprised if Daniel Waters is gay. Um,
Well, and I'm just thinking now too, just based on your definition about like they're doing their hair and they're this and that. Would you say, because I think what fits into that would be the novel My Best Friend's Exorcism.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is a straight man, I do believe. I do believe gay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So that answers my question. A man can do it. I wasn't saying it couldn't. I was looking for that, like the
It has
parameters of this.
it would have to be a man who knew women and who had conversations with women and had friends that were
Yes.
women and all of that kind of thing. No, that I'm not gonna, I can't say names. I cannot say names, but I can think of several men who write female characters who are incredibly inauthentic, and they just don't add anything realistic.
Right,
Um,
right.
I'm thinking of some really specific examples. Um, Women know how not to put themselves in certain danger. Even
Hmm.
dumb women know how to put themselves, like, we don't go to a second location with a stranger that's acting weird. You know what I mean? Like, we know not to do,
Right.
Hmm.
because we know we can get murdered. And when an author repeatedly has female main characters throwing themselves into situations that no woman would ever put herself in, I'm just like, and they're trying to write that kind of thing. It's very transparent. I'm thinking of a specific person. It's very transparent that it does not feel like the author had ever like talked to a woman or had a woman, and I'm sure they did. I refuse to believe that something gets as big as this particular author without having women read it, but nobody, I don't think, ever pointed that out. And there's almost an aversion to girliness where
Hmm.
women might not tell a man, have her ask for a hair tie. Maybe somebody needs that like thrown in there. And it's just the kind of little things like that where I don't think a dude is going to write a scene where a girl beats on a guy with a quad barrel curling iron. Like I did that. I don't think a guy's
Yeah.
up with that unless he has sisters. You know what I mean? Or he
Mm-hmm.
has a wife, or he sees that and then he thinks about that. So yeah, men can absolutely write girly horror, but they have to actually love women and have them in their lives so that they know these kind of things.
Well, and I believe Grady Hendrix had talked about how he like in the afterwards to My Best Friend's Exorcism, he talked about like having his wife, I think, read the book and like advise him on the kind of
Absolutely.
teenage girly elements of, the characters in their scenarios.
His new one, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Oh my God. It's even better. He does
Wow.
teenage girls so well. I'm jealous of his writing. It's
Wow.
such a good book. And it's extremely timely. It's about it's set in the late 60s and it's teenage girls who are pregnant. Their families send them to this house to give birth far away so that nobody has to see it. And then it's obviously an abusive situation, and the girls turn to the supernatural to get by. And it's really, really good so far.
Oh man.
That
That
sounds
sounds
cool.
great.
It's
I've
fantastic.
liked his other books.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He just keeps getting better and better and better. And he is an example of an author, a male author who consistently writes fantastic female characters, I think.
Uh yeah, I blew through How to Sell a Haunted House in like a couple. I mean, I couldn't put it fucking down. I thought it was absolutely outstanding.
Hmm.
I haven't read that one.
It's good. So Grafted is on Shudder. And man, if you like your body horror, you know what's so interesting to me is like for the longest time, body horror was synonymous with David Cronenberg, right?
Hmm.
There were other elements, but I feel like because of he had the underground notoriety and then The Fly just like pinned that mother, it just pinned his fucking name to the board for body horror.
No, The Brood too. The Brood was
Yeah, but The
before The
Brood,
Fly, and that one's
all of his stuff before The Fly, I'm saying he had the underground notoriety because like Videodrome, um, The Brood, like so many of them, but The Fly was the mainstream one. So I just feel like that was once The Fly got big, I feel like was the first time like any normies ever heard body horror, right?
Yeah, when I was getting my horror education, when I was growing up and getting older, The Fly was the only thing I knew about for a very long time from Cronenberg. Like that's the movie I think that casual fans know him for.
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
But Cronenberg, I don't think this is a was, known. I think Cronenberg still is. You
Oh,
say
Oh
he
yeah,
is.
he is.
immediately. And I think I
He
can't think of any other subgenre that is like that. Like you don't, if I say slasher, your brain could go six different places. If I say, sci-fi horror, it goes different places. But if you're thinking, if I say body horror, everybody's brain goes David Cronenberg immediately.
David
Hmm.
Cronenberg. But so that's my point. I feel like up until recently, he he just owned that island, right?
Yeah.
And which may be why he stopped doing it for a long time. I mean, he did, at least 10 years, if not more, of movies that had nothing to do with that. Like he kind of became like almost like an Academy guy.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like now I hear body horror more and more in wider spaces, and I feel like it just seems like it's women, and it makes perfect sense to me because I feel like women are forced to be. I mean, here's the man saying it, so I recognize that, but like women are forced to deal with a lot more unpleasantness with their body than men are. Men are just traditionally like kind of dumb. I mean, I'm a man. I'll admit.
And there's also a lot more people with a lot more opinions on women's bodies than there are men's bodies. So that adds to it a lot.
So that's exactly where I was going to go. And so it makes perfect sense that the dumb men who don't really have to deal with any kind of body horror issues themselves feel justified in telling women what the fuck they can, you know what I mean? It's like, oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. But I think we're about to see like a big, the substance is going to kick off a big trend, I think. And I think it's a very interesting trend. And I don't think if you told me 5 years ago I'd be looking forward to it, I would have believed you. But I'm interested. There's one Sundance is happening right now, and there's another body horror with Alison Brie and Dave Franco. It's called Together. That one I've been seeing a lot of buzz coming out of that one, and
Hmm.
I don't know anything. I have zero facts about this movie. I get the feeling it's about a couple that kind of literally grows together in a like
Ooh.
scary situation.
Ugh. That sounds
Pulling that
cool.
Well,
out of nowhere, just based on like the teeny little synopsis and the name of the movie, just kind of thinking that might be what happens. But I do know it is body horror. So there's more out there that is coming up that we don't even know about yet. So I think it's going to be a nice little trend. It's going to be fun.
so let me ask you both this. Do you think, so, like traditionally, we get these movements in horror that later, like, scholars can point to, because of the way the world was at this time, we got torture porn because people were mean spirited. It was a reaction to this, whatever. It's always, you can always look back and be like, oh, okay, that was kind of a reaction to, to this. I've been thinking, like, what is this body horror crescendo, this movement that we seem poised at the precipice of? What is it based on? And you know what? Is it based on th- the abortion issue, like
Yes.
the whole.
Yes. Yes. I noticed this a couple of months ago. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, I
Yes.
yeah, I never caught that, but
Not just body horror.
One of
It's
the
not
most
just body
disturbing
horror.
things I've ever seen is there was a shirt. I don't know where I saw this, and I was just like, you know what? Just bring the fucking meteor now. And it said, it was like it said, your body, my choice.
oh fuck that.
Yeah, there were young dudes. There were young dudes saying that to women all over the place right after the election.
I
There
mean, that
were
is
some saying
probably the
this
most
morning.
disturbing thing I've heard in like 10
Yeah,
years,
it's super
easily.
fucked. But it's not, it is because of that. And it's not just body horror that's happening. Look at all these movies we've had recently about women that are being forced to have kids that they don't want. We had Immaculate. We had, there
Mm.
First
was
Omen.
Omen.
the first Omen. There's the substance definitely has a feeling of mother-daughter,
Yeah.
like bitchiness back and forth. We're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of movies where women's bodies are suddenly going out of control. We're seeing a lot of movies where women are being subjugated, where women are being like, I think Heretic is kind of like towing the line there with the girls coming up against religion face to face, like the man and the
Yes, yes,
Mm.
Catholic.
absolutely.
There's a lot of this. If you start looking for it, it's all over the place. And I was like, why are all these movies? And then I went, oh, it's because of abortion. It's because we don't have control over our bodies. We have people talking about what we like. We have people saying like women that are postmenopausal, it's their duty to go take care of younger children so that the women that have them can work. Like we have people saying insane things and demanding to, we have trad wives happening. We have all of this with where we're trying to put women back in the fucking kitchen.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm
Of
just,
course that's
I'm
what
waiting for
horror is.
like, I'm waiting for the straight-faced, like, news pundit that's like, I feel like dating is just, a little bit too sophisticated. We need to go back to the caveman days,
Yeah,
where you just like punch the woman and drag her by the hair back to your cave.
yeah, no, exactly. But it's exactly what's happening. It is, and but for the first time, because the last time we were here, men were the ones making all the movies. This is the first time you got women directing these things and writing these things.
And I think it's glorious. I'm so fucking
Yeah,
happy because I mean, I love them. I love women and I love horror. And
It's original because these people were not allowed to make movies before. So you have people who, we have fresh ideas. People talk about
yeah,
everything's getting remade, everything's getting a sequel. Yeah, but we also have this. This is a fantastic, Grafted is a fantastic movie. And it just, yeah. So whenever people start discounting women or discounting women's opinions or women's stories, you're leaving money on the table.
Yep.
Like, I put a fucking hot pink cotton candy skull on the cover of a novel that, I got middle-aged men texting me about, like messaging me about and talking to me about. Like older dudes love my stuff and it is girly as fuck.
I am
Hi,
a middle-aged
Sasha.
man. I'm a middle-aged man that actually loves your stuff. Although I'm middle-aged is probably being generous. I'm probably well past my middle, but What-
But it's true. Like, I've never had a problem selling girliness to men, and it makes me sad.
no.
It makes me sad that I don't know. It makes me sad that this has taken this long for people to understand there's money here. Like,
But there's a new
I don't,
voice to it too, because usually I have a hard time connecting with that kind of stuff, and like this new voice of pissed off girly horror that I like. I mean, that stuff doesn't usually resonate with me, but I love your stuff. And then we're getting stuff like The Substance
Mhm.
and Grafted, and this shit has teeth. Like it's not just girly funny, it's girly mean. Like this movie gets
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. This
And
is nasty.
right. Yeah, nasty. That's a good word for it. And
Hmm.
me 10 years ago, like if you tried to get me to watch a pink horror movie, I like it's just not my thing. But lately, these, and I mean, nothing against female directors or anything like that. I just usually have a hard time connecting with the female voices, but not this new shit.
Because they're finally
Yeah.
letting the right women like tell the stories. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of like,
Oh,
I mean, how long did it take Blumhouse to get a female director? Like,
Yeah, Blumhouse is kind of,
but I mean, they
I
were
don't
the
know.
one. It doesn't matter. They were making all the movies, and if the people that are making all the movies aren't hiring women to direct it, who is?
Well, I agree, but my point being, like, I'm being slightly dismissive with them because I feel like even though they were kind of like this big thing for horror in the mid 2000s, they're really just the establishment. And they always have been. I mean, I like some of their movies, but they're really no different than. I mean, and it just you just see it in what they do, and especially like everything about that company, like their marketing, the trailers, they are the establishment. All of their trailers show you the fucking whole movie, right? They did the remake of
Speak No Evil.
Hear No Evil
Yeah.
or Speak No Evil, right? That I mean, so they are the establishment. So that it doesn't really surprise me that it would take them that long. But then like right away, I'm thinking like Jen Wexler. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Like the Ranger, the Sacrifice Game, like she has fucking teeth. And I think her stuff. I forget if it's Glass Eye Pix. She's tied loosely into Fesseden's camp, but I don't know.
See, The Ranger's 2018. This is one of my favorite types of horror. There's not a lot out there before, the last 10 years. There's really not. There's Ginger Snap,
Right.
Teeth, there's Jennifer's Body. Um, my mind is completely blanking, even though I know there's
The
more.
Loved Ones.
Uh,
That
yeah,
would be
that's another
very
one.
girly. I love that movie though.
Yeah, that's
That
another
and
one.
that shit has teeth
Yeah.
too.
Um, but there just wasn't a lot of that, and now all of a sudden there is, and it's like it just feels like it felt like for a little bit of time there when this first let's go hire a bunch of women to make horror movies, when that first really started to heat up, in the late teens, early 20s is when I feel like it started to heat up. Around the time the movie X X came out, it felt performative and it felt like they were only making movies with women so they could brag about making movies with women. And it
Right.
feel like that anymore. It feels like they're finally giving money to people who want to tell these stories,
Yeah.
who understand the genre. Not to knock on any of the women that made movies before that or whatever, or who I'm, if I'm if I'm talking about the people who made Black Christmas, whatever, they made a movie, I didn't. So good for them. But things like that, that doesn't feel like that was made as a passion project. That feels like that was made to click a box. We made a movie, you know, about women by women, written by women, and it's bad.
Diversity in genre circles has been suspect until recently, and like this goes like just the easiest and probably the most well versed I am is in comic books, where it's like Marvel just always kind of was diverse,
Yeah.
and DC, like you could literally see them like, oh, we need to do, have a black chick as a Batman. Like the
Yeah.
most, oh, this character's gay now. Like the most disingenuous, like check a fucking box,
Mhm.
boom. And it's like, yeah, just because you do that doesn't mean it comes from the right place. But they're banking on people not getting that. It's just like, oh, I mean, my God, like, you remember like after like the Black Lives Matter, there was this big push where like all of a sudden like there were so many big corporate things trying to own that space, and it's like fuck off, you didn't give a shit about this before.
Yep.
Like come on. I mean, at the same time, it's good to like amplify the voice, but I don't know, disingenuous diversity. It's still diversity, but at the same time, it's like I don't know, it's kind of dangerous because like yeah, where'd that go?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Oh man, this got sticky.
This got
Well, go ahead.
depressed really
well, and it's
fast.
not the same as like these people like Coralie Fargeau. You can tell that they really have something to say, but they
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
also love the genre, and
Yes.
they're getting their point across while telling a very engaging, fun horror movie. Like I love the
yeah.
movie
I don't,
Revenge, and I mean
yes.
I'm not a big fan of rape revenge movies, but that movie nails it. She basically like she's the Crow crossed with a fucking superhero, and it's great.
Hmm.
But she's still
Yeah,
a pro,
there's another rape revenge movie that you and I both just watched and were discussing yesterday that was also directed by a woman.
Oh
And that's
shit.
another one out there. I still think Revenge is the better. Like if I had to pick a favorite rape movie, this is what horror needed all along. They just need to let women start making more
Pissed
movies
off
about
women
unhinged shit.
because these women are angry and they've got like this shit is packing a punch. It you know
Exclusively write female villains because it's just better. It's just it hasn't been done to death. It's real easy to come up with a motive for a female slasher when there's no really like there's none of them. There's
right.
like Angela, the one in from Urban, then there's Brenda from Urban Legend.
Mm.
There's not many. So it's real easy to come up with like reasons why because it's not been done a million times.
I mean, you've had a couple in the Scream series
Yeah, that's another
throughout the
one.
movies, but I guess all they had to do was piss off creative people, and you know, we get a whole new strain of horror movies. And
It just feels like the money is going to the right people all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like the right people are getting picked up and the
good.
right people are getting amped. And it does, but it just, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's being done because, well, we got to meet a quota.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also look at the diversity of the movies. Like even if you go like, okay, none of these movies we're talking about are like, classically structured or like I mean, all horror is tropey to a degree because you're
Right.
like, oh, well, blood and guts is a trope, right? But like, or you think of like Jordan Peele as a black man becoming this like institution in horror. I love his movies because I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Right.
fucking. There's nothing else like any of his movies. Like to me, each movie is better than the last
Mm-hmm.
because he gets further and further out there.
Yeah.
Like nope. I just think I'm like, I, what would you even compare that to?
Yeah.
Jaws, maybe? Like that's
Mm,
it. And it's not really a comparison.
no.
It's totally grasping for straws.
Oh, Us is really out there too. That's the one I like the best. But
We win. When you get different voices and different cultures and different whatever, different kinds of people making movies, everybody wins.
Yeah.
Except the people that only want to see the same movie made over and over again. And you know what? For them, cool, man. The Ballerina is coming out, and it's about a ballerina from the world of John Wick that kills motherfuckers. Great. I mean, John Wick's fine, but you know.
There is nothing wrong with liking popcorn movies, though. So
No, but I'm just saying. I mean, it's like there's nothing wrong with liking popcorn movies, but at some point, it's just like,
yeah.
there's a thing where it's like every action movie after John Wick is like it's just John Wick.
Yeah, but sometimes you like the formula. I mean, I was trying to explain to my dad, who did not realize there were 12 different Jason movies, why anybody would want to watch 12 slasher movies about Jason dying over and over again. And,
Right.
I love Jason movies. My dad loves John Wick. He doesn't care that it's the same movie over and over again. And I mean, we love slasher movies here. A lot of times I find comfort in the formula. I mean, I like when they mix it up and surprise me a bit, but there's also having a crappy day at work or whatever and knowing, oh, well, this is a slasher movie. I'm gonna get some enjoyment out of this, because even if it's not the greatest thing in the world, I like this formula and I'm still probably gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree with. I get the meltdown where like I thought this year was good with like Monkey Man and Boy Kills World, where we saw action movies that were not.
Yes.
Because it's so often when I see an action movie, I'm like, it's literally just fucking and John Wick's fine. I don't not like John Wick, but it's like when every other movie is just John Wick. It's like, I mean, yes, the formula is fine, but I don't know. I mean, and everybody has their comfort food, right? So I'm not. I should be careful. I should tread lightly, but
I also think
I just feel like
we're spoiled as horror fans. We really are, because we have good garbage. We have movies being nominated for Oscars. We get all of this. Some genres are so dead that that's all they can get. Like if you're a fan of movies, you're not going to the movies anytime, there's nothing there. You're getting whatever's going to streaming, and that is it. You get one, like, you hope somebody does something different. Horror makes money, so we have popcorn horror, we have horror that's not really horror at all, to make, like Boo, like, Conjuring type stuff. Not Annabelle. Conjuring can actually be scary. Annabelle is not scary. We have Annabelle out there, whatever. You have stuff on Shudder, you have like everything. So we're
Oscar
really
horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when everything is John Wick, it's because nobody's throwing any money at action to be anything other than John Wick.
Well, because they just stick with that. Like that's a great example of a genre. Because it's like, remember after the Matrix, it's like everything was the fucking Matrix forever. It's like, oh my god,
but that
enough.
happens with everything. I mean, we see it in horror too. I mean, we got stuck with all these found footage movies because Blair Witch.
Well, yes, but that's the thing with the found footage though is as tired as it got, it was a viable way for somebody with no fucking money to make a horror movie. That's why. Whereas I'm talking about like we're talking action movies that cost like $50 million to make, and they're like, well, the best we can come up with it's a guy that doesn't wear a suit that goes to a motel to meet with a guy that sets him up to kill other people, and then they kill his giraffe, and he's got to, and it's like, really? I don't know. The John Wickification, like my dad was trying to tell me why The Equalizer is a good movie, and I'm like, first of all, The Equalizer that was on TV was like an old, like British guy that I mean, we would always make fun of that because we're like, oh, this is the guy that they're gonna send to kill people. Is this like an 80-year-old guy with a silencer and a trench coat? And then they gave it to what's his name? But I'm like, you could tell by watching the trailers that I'm like, it's John Wick. I don't know.
Trends. It's just trends. And if something does well, we'll see other things that are like it.
But like Ivy said with horror, it's like so you have that. Definitely you got your found footage, for years we were stuck with the fucking torture porn fucking bullshit.
Right.
Um you get slashers and mileage may vary for any particular fan, but in the meantime, look at all the other shit that you hate. Like it's just an endless cornucopia of possibility.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's the best. It truly is.
and horror is keeping movie theaters alive. We're the ones that come out.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yep.
we're seeing so much horror lately. That's what's doing well in theaters because horror fans are loyal. We always show up and show out.
Yeah.
We like movies when they're bad. We
And
go
when
see
they're good,
them
and
in
when they're
horror.
We
mediocre.
like all kinds of movies.
Actually, mediocre is almost a sin in horror, right? Like bad is great,
Right.
great is great, but
Yeah.
mediocre is like, really? You couldn't have tried harder to be bad?
Right?
Yeah.
No, and like Ivy, you're right about comedy because I just saw I don't know what streamer I was on, and I saw that like there was a movie I had heard nothing about until it was literally in the theater, and it was like a Saturday Night Live biopic,
Yeah. It's pretty
and
fun.
it was in the theater for like I feel like a week, and then it was gone, and I remember like Kirsten's like, "Oh, what about that Saturday Night Live?" I was like, oh God, was that like last week and it was gone? And now it's already on a streamer. So I'm like, even with like, the pedigree of being about what is essentially like a comedic touchstone for the entire, I don't know about world, but country, right? It still didn't do anything in the theater. People were like, oh yeah, I
Right.
don't care.
But Terrifier sold out.
It was good. It was good.
I saw
Yeah,
Terrifier 3 in a
Terrifier.
packed house.
Yeah.
Question. Did you guys, we're so off topic, I've just given up. Did you guys see the news today that Damien Leone, on his birthday, which I guess was today or yesterday, announced Terrifier 4 is going to be the end? And he put, I forget the exact words he used. I was like, dude, I love this fucking man because he's like a emotional and satisfying conclusion to the Terrifier saga. So he's like, it will be emotional, but it will also be satisfying, which I thought was really interesting for somebody to point out, and he's like, I really want to cut it off before we get the Terrifier in space.
I suppose that's
I
fair,
have
but
trouble believing this. I do.
So I don't think it'll end. Well, that was going to be my question. Do you actually think that something this fucking, like, could this possibly be the end?
It's interesting that it's part 4. And speaking of Jason, what was
right.
the name of part
The final
Friday the
chapter.
13th? Exactly.
Oh my
Well, and all
God.
the horror franchises do it. I mean, Freddy, we had
Yeah.
Freddy's Dead, and
Freddy
Yeah.
made it all the way to 6 movies before we got to
Right.
that mess.
Yeah.
I love Freddy's Dead. I don't want anybody to think I don't love it.
me too.
But that was 6 movies in. They didn't start trying to get rid of Freddy for a while. But Jason, that was number 4.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Friday the 13th might be a little bit of a inspiration for Mr. Leone in some ways. So
I can see that.
I don't know. I don't think they're going to stop making those movies. I think that
I don't think.
it didn't even start until part 2. And I think that he's trying harder and harder to create films worthy of the character of Art the Clown. And
Mhm.
it'd be sad to see that not really get somewhere. And I think that he probably does have a couple more stories in him. I really do.
I don't think it will actually end there, but I think you're right. But I wonder if he could like do some kind of pivot, like could you continue Terrifier or at least Art, right? Oh, there you go. If this is the last Terrifier movie. And also, I remember thinking in the second movie where they're like, oh, they go to the carnival and the ride is the Terrifier. I remember thinking like, oh, there's the title because I never understood the
Mhm.
title of the first one when everybody would be like, "Oh my God, it's amazing," or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But so you could totally end Terrifier, but continue Art the Clown. Okay, there we go.
Absolutely.
Be-
He's in movies
Because
that
all,
aren't Terrifier. He's in A Hallow's Eve,
Yeah.
isn't
yes,
he?
right. Well, that's like pre, right, or
Yeah.
whatever.
But he works in a different sort of environment. I absolutely think you could. I don't see a reason why you could move on to another character he's terrorizing. Um, I know they have their Final Girl now, but Final Girls come and go in long-running series.
Yeah, but she's fucking
Yes,
awesome.
she
Like
is.
True.
she's I think she's the best final girl of all time, in my opinion. I know that's like bold horror statement, but there's just something about her. She radiates something I've never seen on screen before in a horror movie with the final girl.
She's a great one for sure.
Yeah. They
So
could.
Grafted is on Shudder, and I think, Missy, would you say that people should run out right now, throw a brick through a window at a local department store, steal a TV, bring it home, plug it in, subscribe to Shudder. I don't think any of the technology actually works like this. So disclaimer, don't actually do what I'm saying. And then watch this movie if they don't already have the means to do so.
Hell yeah, it's worth checking out. It's a good time. It's gnarly. It's got teeth. I liked it a lot. If you like stuff like The Substance, it's absolutely check it out. Absolutely worth checking out.
Ivy, would you say that people should go to extreme lengths, like perhaps parachuting into Burma, if they don't have a TV or the ability to watch this, and they find that they can watch this in Burma? Would you say that it's worth parachuting into Burma to see this movie?
I'm gonna say no. It
Okay.
is very, very good. It is worth if you have a list of movies you're like dying to get through and like you've just been waiting to see. Once you're done with that list, make this the next movie you see. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Like
would say move
if
it
you're
up the
dying to
list.
see if you're dying to see Nosferatu and you haven't watched it yet, watch Nosferatu and then watch this. If you're dying Substance, watch the Substance first.
If you haven't seen Nosferatu or The Substance, you didn't see them in the theater, you're kind of fucked. I
Well,
mean, like you could still watch them and enjoy them,
that's
but like it's
yeah.
if they were still in the theater, I would definitely, and this was in the theater, I would definitely say like, do not go see this. Go see Nosferatu or go see The Substance. But now that they're all at home, it's like they're
Yeah.
still. I don't know. I'm still more excited about both of those other movies, but this movie is up there. Like, let's put it this way. Here's my closing thought. It's always nice in January when a movie makes me start my letterbox list for the new year that is best horror of 2025 or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yes.
To start your
Yes.
list in January, it feels good, you know? And it's not just like, oh, I better keep track of this. I was like, this may be a contender for top five.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
fantastic. But it's also going to be a good year.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Hell, next month is going to be a good month. There's lots of stuff coming out in February.
there's a ton of stuff coming out in February. And there were a few years there because I like watching horror movies on Valentine's Day. There were quite a few years there in a row where there was no horror in February at all. And I was like having to scramble to find something for Valentine's.
Right. And there's very little like festive
Yeah.
ones for Valentine's Day. Just all I can really think of is the two My Bloody Valentines and Valentine.
Yeah.
You know what was marketed as a Valentine Day movie back in like 2000? I think it was four or five. I forget exactly.
What?
High Tension.
Really?
I remember going to the theater to see the first Saw movie and seeing the trailer for High Tension the first time, and it was like this Valentine's Day. I was like, what? But
Awesome.
maybe, I guess. I mean, it's kind of like the extremes of love, maybe. This is like that episode I don't know how to end, so I'm just going to end it. So, Ivy, so Mother Dear is available now. People can
Yes.
buy that on Amazon.
Yes.
They
Mother
can
Dear
also buy.
like candy too, and MAUL rats, Mallrats.
I definitely I can, again, I still have not read Mallrats. It's on my list, but I've read the others, and I just wholeheartedly 100 motherfucking percent encourage people to read them because I think they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, they are.
You.
And it's a Horror Vision. And Ivy, thank you for joining us again. I'm Sean.
I'm Missy.
And don't go cutting your face off, anybody.
Hapless teenagers beset by demons in the woods. A strange new drug that turns art into murder. A can't beat a deal on a new house with a horrifying past. A video game that might usher in the apocalypse. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, Shadow Play, and Murder Virus, comes Volume 4, collecting Baker's no-sleep work along with several never-before-published short stories. This 99-cent volume also includes the opening chapter of the author's forthcoming teenage giallo novel, Black Gloves and Broken Hearts.